Hey everyone, welcome to the reality show. So we started the week, I believe it was Monday, right? We started the week with this topic that we are ending the week with as the main topic, which is the story of Lucy Letby. We'll get to that in a moment, but later on today's show, we will talk about Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, and how difficult it would be or impossible for him to get into university today because the government doesn't give away enough free stuff or something. And then we'll talk about trans cheese. That's it's an interesting thing that has recently been discovered. Before we get to that, yeah, the main story, it'll be quite a transition later on, but yeah, the main story is Lucy Letby, who we spoke about on Monday, the nurse, the NHS nurse who was convicted of murdering 7 babies. And we talked about how, you know, information came to light and was coming to light and kind of people knew what was going on or knew that something was going on that was not right for a long time before anything was actually done, which is like amazing when you, especially for people who don't know how the NHS operates. So she was convicted of murdering 7 babies and trying to kill 6 more. And let me put it this way: they're now seriously considering stopping paying her. So the NHS may be moving in a good direction. By the way, I didn't introduce my co-host. So Alejandro, who you may remember from the shows with James Valiant about Ayn Rand's essays. Daniel, who you hopefully know from behind the scenes on pretty much everything you see on this channel. They're joining me today. Alejandro, you live in London, so hopefully you know more about this topic than some of us who also live in London.
Definitely. So my understanding is that the NHS is not stopping to pay her. I think that they did that a while ago. This news is more specifically related to stripping her out of the pension system that the NHS has. I'm not completely sure about how the rules work for the pension system, but my understanding is that it works like any government-led pension system where several people give certain amount of contributions while they work for that company or state-owned company. And then when they retire, they will receive a certain amount of money. My understanding is that that's how the pension system of the NHS works as well, and it's quite generous, probably. But there's a clause of the pension system which basically says that if you committed a crime, you can be barred from receiving any income from that. And I think, to a certain extent, it's interesting. If you committed a crime, then all the amount of contributions that you gave could be taken away. I'm not completely sure if that's the ultimate legal recourse, or maybe you could have access to some of the contributions that you made. But do you think that maybe a criminal has at least some chance to recuperate some of the money that they gave away?
So, yeah, I'm wondering what is like, how does it work exactly? Because it says convicted of, or like becoming a criminal convicted of some. I'm wondering if it's specifically related to the job, as we have seen with this case, which I could understand if your job is nurse or, nursing, well, not nursing kids, but making sure kids are not dying while they are still in the hospital. I can understand if your pension goes away after you're convicted of murdering those kids. But what do you think if it's crime, let's say, outside of the job? Do you know if there is like a specific, if it's mentioned, or like if it's specifically that if you commit a crime related to your job?
That's interesting. I think that the from what I read, the way that the law is explicitly stated, it says any criminal case, but certainly it's something that could be discussed. Like maybe you were negligent and you just crashed your car and you were convicted. Would that make you lose all the amount that you have saved or put into the pension? I would say probably not.
What do you
But-
think, Razi?
I mean, I think this is also, a part of the wider problem, which is, this is why the NHS and similar organizations should not exist under government, because when you're dealing with a private company, with a private employer, they set the terms and you agree to them or you don't agree to them, and that's how it works. Now, this is, we talk about the NHS unfavorably a lot, and we will continue to do so. But this is not unique to the NHS. So I, in my 20s, spent a few months working, not exactly for a government company, but in a company that was working, a contractor of a government company, and in a different country. And so they had this massive building, or not massive, but several stories high, and there was somebody there who committed some sort of fraud, like stole money from the company, the government company, and he was removed from his role and removed from his office and got an office on a different floor, and didn't actually have a job there, but couldn't be fired either. So he wasn't actually doing anything. That's how unions, that's the kind of perks that unions get you. He couldn't be fired. He was sitting there collecting a paycheck, or showing up. I don't know what he was doing all day, but it wasn't work because he wasn't tasked with anything. And yeah, that's how government intervention, in the economy and control of certain parts of it, that's how it manifests itself in things that in a free market. Yeah, if you steal money from the company you work for, they will probably fire you and then some. They will probably press charges and try to get that money back.
And this is more or less stated as a scandal. I hope that the scandal is that they took a lot to strip her away from this pension. Not that she's getting stripped of the money, but I think the real scandal is what you discussed last Monday, Razi. But that the fact that she stayed for so long in the NHS speaks a lot. Like even when she had been more or less suspected that she had something to do with this baby, the death of these babies, she was just put away as a secretary, and she was there for like 4 to 5 years, and people were like, okay. After a doctor claiming that he was really distressed, or that he was thinking that maybe she had something to do, nothing was done. Imagine if this had happened in a more free environment of medicine. Like everyone talks about US medicine as being free. I don't think it's free, but if this had happened in the US, everyone would be talking about this as being the true scandal of how greed makes you kill babies or something.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be the US. It could be Bupa or whatever the private, there's some private health services in the UK, and yeah, I can only imagine, that would take, that would inspire some government action to ban whatever little freedom there is in healthcare.
And let's think again, who are the victims? Of course, the babies and the families are the victims of this system, of her, but also the victims of the system as such are people like the doctor, people who know better, who probably have good incentives and good aims, good values. They want to move the world for the better. And what is the response of an institution like the NHS? Nothing, or even worse than nothing. And what can this doctor do? He could maybe go to the private sector, but it's, to my understanding, it's not that easy. It's not like changing jobs in any other market. And basically, you are set up with a very terrible question. Do I want to preserve my job, or do I want to denounce this pretty bad behavior? So when I criticize the institution of the NHS, it's not that I criticize the workers of the NHS. Some of them are quite reasonable, decent people, but they are actually one of the victims over there. And all the system is not geared to espouse or to support certain nurses that kill people, but certainly is not super aimed to contradict them. We live in a really free place, and we live in a really advanced economy where the death of babies should be raising some questions, specifically when you're seeing it in a very specific hospital, and nothing happened.
Yeah, and just to see the real contrast between working for the government sector and maybe being a private citizen, I believe we talked maybe a couple of weeks ago about this actor who was American actor who was charged in the UK about sexual harassment cases, and he was acquitted of all the charges. But even then, as soon as the what do you call it, accusations came in, he got fired from everything. He had no work from then, and I think no work even since. And this is a private citizen who was not guilty and was still, so his reputation is ruined. And when you compare it to this person working for the government sector or the public sector, after the after she was I'm really forgetting all the words, when they started considering she might be doing this, she still kept her job. And it took the only way she left her work is because she was going to jail. It took so long, and you really see the difference between the public and the private sector. And we have Mark joining us.
Yes. Hello there.
Hi, Mark.
Yes, well, actually, so we due to some errors behind the scenes, actually, Mark doesn't have the topics, which I will forward him the email right now. But yes, I had a whole introduction for you, saying that regular viewers of this show know Mark. They also know Michael. So now we have Michael Lewis joining us, who's the best of both worlds. This is your Ayn Rand Center UK debut. Mark is the host of the Becoming an Ayn Rand Hero podcast. And yeah, glad to have you with us. Let me get back to you soon after you know what we're talking about. So I will forward you that email. Or Daniel, if you can do that, and I will read super chats. So we have a super chat from Michael Sanders. By the way, Michael, we will also address your super chat from yesterday once we're finished with this topic. But Michael says, Razi, is the NHS as bad as they say? Do most Brits have private health insurance? I don't think most Brits have private health insurance. I think some do. If you can afford it, you probably want it. Is it as bad as they say? Who's they? If it's the people on this channel, probably not. We use a lot of hyperbole, but no, it is bad. And again, it depends. It depends on what you need. If you have a headache, the NHS will take care of it. But if you have cancer, it depends. I think I mentioned this on Monday. It really does depend. You could have won the postcode lottery and happened to be in the area where cancer is treated, or the specific type that you have, treated. But that is really the way it is, right? With many issues, you need to be in the right place to get good healthcare.
And the
Go on.
and the private system is not also like an improvement. I would consider it like the premium NHS rather. Like you get a better place in the queues, but sometimes you get even the same doctors. You just get a higher fee to pay at the end. I've had some experiences with both systems, and I'm not impressed at all with any of those. I moved from a really bad country with almost everything wrong in that to the UK, and the only thing that I felt that my quality of life went down terribly is in healthcare. And sorry, Daniel.
I was just making a joke. So I was just saying, if you're not sick, yeah, NHS is great for you, which is how those type of health cares usually work.
Yeah, and we also had a super chat from Gail, and thank you, Gail. And I was gonna say I was surprised earlier, Alejandro, how you were talking and typing in the chat at the same time. Then I understood it's a different Alejandro. Yeah, well, that's not a super chat, but I'm gonna react to it anyway. I don't know. I mean, no, if you committed murder, then you know, yeah, I don't know if you get even the money. The money that you save might be used for compensation to other people. You're not going to need it, even though we did talk a few weeks ago about somebody who was wrongly convicted of rape in the UK, spent 17 years in prison, then was released when they realized it wasn't him, and might have to pay rent or something to that effect. Accommodation and yeah, whatever expenses the system incurred over his incarceration, which is shocking. Mark, any thoughts on that? I don't know if you got the email that I just forwarded to you, but yeah, that was an interesting topic.
Well, so that last one, talk about insult to injury.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we're going to deprive you of your freedom. We're going to put you through hell, and then we're going to charge you for it. Only the top quality hell from us.
To be fair, British prisons are not really hell, from what I've heard. Haven't had the pleasure yet, but from what I've heard, it's kind of like a 3-star hotel. So
Really,
yeah, not the Waldorf Astoria, but like a Hampton Inn. So
that is very different than American prisons.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah, no, hell is a good description.
Yeah, I mean, from documentaries, it definitely looks like hell in the US, and which is kind of that's what I mean. That's what I want for people who deserve it, not for people who are wrongly convicted. I don't know if you got a chance to look at the story of Lucy Letby, the nurse in the UK who was convicted of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 6 others. And now she is, we were discussing her getting her pension, which again, you know, if you're guilty, you pay when you're proven innocent, and if you're or no, wait, how does it work? If you're not guilty, you pay. If you're guilty, you get paid. That's kind of a theme here.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because there's 2 different contracts going on. One is I worked under a certain set of conditions and I'm going to get a pension based on that work. And then there's a separate set of conditions, namely psychopathic murder. And right, at what point does the crime violate the other agreement? Since they're both governmental, I assume that's an easier place.
Yeah, I believe in that contract it actually says that there's like a clause that you Alejandro, maybe you can say it. You read it, you know it better.
If you intentionally murder a whole bunch of your patients, then you don't get your pension. It's actually written in there. It's clause 17B.
There's a little asterisk to getting your pension.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know at what point you lose it, but I think that point is well before you murder a first baby, let alone 7 of them. And yeah, I mean, look, again, somebody who's convicted of murder, I think, as part of it would have to, first of all, never see the light of day again and never have use for money, but should, if they have any assets, this is where I'm fine with government taking by force, supposedly, the assets of somebody to give to the victims of that person. So I would have no issue with that. And again, this is not a crime she committed separate. This is what she did during the time in which she earned her salary and her pension contributions. So yeah.
It also brings up the question that there's retributive justice and restorative justice, and you're causing problems to use your punishment to repay the problems seems to me to make a lot more sense than simply punishment. And if you can use someone's appropriately discontinued pension for that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they just could have included it as part of the ruling. I'm guessing now it's too late, but one of the, your sentence for life and also your pension or anything, any money you would have been given in the future is going to the victims or something like that. I'm not sure if they can. Well, they can now, but if it's a problem that the government technically couldn't have, if the justice system instead could have done something like that.
So equal to reality says in the chat, I have an old friend in prison and apparently it really is like a hotel. See, this is why when you get released after 17 years of being wrongly accused, you have to pay. 17 years in a hotel is quite the bill. So
Well, is it the Travelodge or the Hilton?
well, he says it really is like a hotel. I've been to travel lodges. They're not like a hotel. They're like something else. I think they're more like American prisons. Anyway, should we move on to Daniel? Do you have Michael's super chat from yesterday's show, which I believe came in right at the end? So this is not the people to whom it was addressed, but we will attempt to answer just as well.
I can get it in. Yes, I have it. So Michael super chatted yesterday, right at the end. He said, "There's." We were talking about basically how Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner Group, mysteriously died, or is it confirmed yet? I believe it's suspected that he was in, but there were a couple of rumors that he might have not actually taken that plane. Does anyone know if it was
Confirmed by Russians. That's it.
So the super chat said, "There's no way Putin doesn't use nuclear weapons when he gets to the point where his regime is about to fall."
Yeah, I'm glad that's not a question because I don't have an answer. I don't know. Against, like, where would he drop in Moscow? I mean, because if his regime falls, as much as I'd like to see, Ukraine win the war, as in like destroy the Russian regime, I don't think that's where it's going to fall from. So yeah.
At some point I heard someone referred to him as a cornered rat, and they used a story of his past. So he used to be a KGB spy, I guess, or like a KGB employee, the secret police of the Soviet Union. And when he heard he was stationed in the East Berlin, either East Germany or specifically East Berlin. And when he heard the Soviet Union died, instead of maybe being like, okay, well, what do I do now? When they were coming to his like headquarters, he started like burning all the papers just so he could preserve honor of KGB, just so he could like, I don't know. So if he's really cornered, I'm wondering what he will do. Hopefully someone takes him out before he ever has a chance to do anything like that.
I mean, he could do what Hitler did. I'd be okay with that. But yeah, I don't know. Mark, any thoughts on what Putin might do in the very last moment?
Let's hope that he wants a legacy that isn't, and then I destroyed the world because I didn't get my way. Let's hope that he cares about that, because, you know, assuming that he's power hungry and resentful and he loses his power, him using whatever power he has left as it declines in order to cause as much damage as possible as a major screw you to anyone who challenges my power. I can't say I know that much about his personality, but he doesn't seem that kind of destructive personality. He seems to be very constructive, really looking to create something. And I assume he wants a legacy, so I'm assuming he's not going to go down that road, but there's a lot of assumptions in there.
Alejandro, do you
Alejandro.
have something to say?
Maybe not. Maybe I think these kind of people know that, like, the only way to deal with these people is force, and I think that they understand that language, and he knows that he has a nuke, or probably 80 nukes in his head right now, just pointing at him. That's the reason he's not using them. I think is the kind of person who wouldn't hesitate to use them if there weren't any threats on him. But because of this, I think he won't. Even in the worst of anything, he will.
Yeah, and just to give some people's minds at ease, from what I understand, it's not, there is no big red button. There are some check and balances even in Russia. So even if he was crazy enough to do it, there is some chance not everyone would automatically follow him. And we've seen how Russia takes care of their regular weapons they use for war. So how do we know, even if those nukes they have, even if they have as many as they say, or if they are if they even have been kept in a good enough condition to use?
Yeah, on the checks and balances, I would think the people who are supposed to be, checking whatever are probably appointed by Putin to make sure that when that day comes, they will do what they're told. But on the other point, yeah, one of my favorite answers by Harry Binswanger on HBTV, I believe it may have been to a super chat by Michael Sanders as well. It was last year in the first few months of the war. He was asked about whether he thinks Russia might use nukes in Ukraine, and he said, they're so incompetent that even if they might fire a nuke and it would sort of turn back around and fall on them. So yeah, if he does, let's hope that prediction comes true at the very least. All right, Keir Starmer. Now, I've been accused by people of being a supporter of Keir Starmer and a supporter of Tony Blair. And let me make it very clear that I don't support anybody in politics anywhere. I'm against them all. I just hate them to different degrees. And my any hope that I have when it comes to Keir Starmer being the next prime minister is mostly a hope that the Conservative Party, who put us through lockdowns, gets destroyed in the election, because they deserve it. It doesn't necessarily, I don't think that would be better off under Labour. We'll probably be worse off, but there will be a sense of justice if the conservatives lose by a landslide. So Keir Starmer says, I wouldn't be able to go to university today. This is the headline in The Guardian, the main news source that feeds the reality show. Labor leader says sluggish economy has driven up prices and is holding back students and apprentices. Now, that's not necessarily not true. The question is, what is the solution? And that's always what concerns me, whether politicians point at an actual problem or a made-up problem. In both cases, they have solutions that are going to make everything worse. And I think Keir Starmer is probably that's what he has planned. Mark.
Yeah, We call them regulations. We say we're going to regulate the market, and that is one of the most clever and powerful word plays that has been introduced into the normal lexicon. It's like, because you can't regulate a market, you can't regulate an economy. We don't have that power. You can restrict parts of the economy, and so you can put restrictions in place. You can subsidize some people at the cost of others, but you can't regulate it. And so the chances, Jordan Peterson has the great metaphor for it. He says, if there's an attack helicopter, right, a very complex piece of machinery, and it's not working properly, you taking a hammer to it, what are the chances that you're going to make it better? And the answer is very, very little. And so, what is labor going to do to the market that's going to make it better? Somehow I'm not enheartened by the kinds of policies that they're going to put in place. It reminds me of course, Mr. Thompson talking to John Galt and saying, take over for us. You can do anything that you want. He's all, you wouldn't like what I have to say. So no, you can't. Okay, take off all the restrictions. Oh no, we couldn't do that. The only things that you could do that would actually make a difference are almost by definition off of the table when it comes to labor. At least the conservatives have some things that they consider them on the table. They don't actually do them, but they consider them as part of the conversation. So no, I'm not at all helpful. I have a friend who writes for the conservative for various conservative politicians, and no, I do not have good feelings about labor winning, unfortunately, as just as it might be.
I was with you until you said at least the conservatives have some of the right things on the table. So I think one of the reasons, and who was it? Apollo Zeus said Starmer or Blair. Yeah, people have accused me of being a Blairite. What the reason people accuse me of being a Blairite is when I talk about the conservatives, their last 13 years were with the Conservative Party in power, and compare it to the previous 13 years, or at least 11 or 12 of those years with Tony Blair in power before Gordon Brown took over. If you go policy by policy, whether it's income tax, VAT, regulations of all sorts, even cultural issues, labor was better than the conservatives. Now, I don't think today's labor would be better than the conservatives. I think Tony Blair, if Tony Blair himself came back, I don't think he would govern the way he governed before, because politics is downstream from culture, as we always say, and
our culture is going downstream.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And so the conservatives followed the culture. The conservatives took the country to the left, if we're going to use those terms, economically, and labor is not going to, labor will always have to be to the left of the conservatives. So if the conservatives push everything to the left, labor has to be to the left of that. Now, some of the things Starmer has said recently are not as bad as, certainly not as bad as his predecessor, who was an actual Marxist and a despicable human being. But still, when it comes to the conservatives, I have nothing positive to say. The only positive thing in the last 13 years was the 6 weeks or so where Liz Truss was in office, or the first few weeks of those I was so optimistic. We did a bunch of shows on this channel. You can go back, watch them.
No. You don't remember it. So she said some things that we really liked on Sunday, and we were like, should we wait until Monday to do the show? And Razi was like, no, she's gonna back off. Let's do the special show on Sunday. On Monday, she backed off already. We couldn't do the show on it if we were to do it on Monday.
Yeah, I remember doing that. That was the second one of only 2 episodes we've ever done on a weekend. And both times it was because we thought the people we were praising are going to backtrack, and this one actually happened. I think I was at an airport Monday morning when I saw a headline on a TV there, saying Liz Truss backs off of the 45%, the 5% tax cuts for the very richest. So yeah, it's a good timing of that episode. Alejandro and I still did an episode, I think on Tuesday or Wednesday of that week about Michael Gove, a particularly despicable politician in the UK. Alejandro, you are you going to vote for Labour in the next general election?
Thank God I don't vote. And actually, my first reaction to this article was, which country does this guy live in? Because I agree. Tuition in the UK is brutally expensive, but what he doesn't tell is that it's actually underpriced against any other person who wants to higher education in the UK. So if you are a UK citizen, you will have a much lower fee than a person who comes to study from China. Actually, you will have like a third of the tuition fee than an international student. I was searching for some statistics for this, and basically, you have a 3-year degree, which usually in the UK degrees are 3 years long. You will spend about $30,000 in total for the full degree. But if you are an international student, you will pay about $100K in the full year. Now, what explains this? Why is it much cheaper to be a UK national, and why is it so much expensive for the international student? Well, basically, probably I asked ChatGPT, and probably since the 1990s, late 1990s. Like with Mr. Blair, there was the start of some subsidizing or at least forcing the UK universities to charge a minimum fee for both EU and UK students. And as time has progressed, this has become more entrenched and more entrenched, so that basically every year the government says how much colleges and universities should charge per year, and then they can charge whatever they want for the international students. And it wouldn't surprise me that if there were no international students, universities would be losing money. So if you took away those subsidies, I wouldn't be surprised that actually universities would raise prices on UK students. Now, I agree that it's very expensive. What explains that it's so costly? And my impression is both ways. Lack of demand, a lot of demand from people from China who think that the UK is a great place to live, and that have become more rich as time has progressed. But also because the UK doesn't have universities, or at least good quality universities, and it's very difficult to establish one. So you have a constrained supply and a massive demand. Yeah, that's my thought. I think this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Keir Starmer. Well, I mean, look, the Conservatives might have a better solution, like sending the foreign students to university in Rwanda might help, like they're doing with refugees.
Well, and also, if you're not in STEM, you get a negative product. Like you go into the university knowing something, you get out of the university becoming, whatever you become.
Well, I think in that sense, British universities are competitive with American ones. Mark, is that a correct assessment about the humanities, the state of the humanities in the US?
From what I've spoken about with my UK friends, it's better in the UK than it is in the United States for most of the major institutions. United States is a broad place. It really depends kind of on where you're at. If you're in the middle of the country, it's typically a lot better in terms of actually focusing on learning things that are worthwhile versus learning, for lack of a better term, just woke propaganda. But fortunately, STEM is very, very important and popular, and it's always available. As they say, learn to code. The university system in the United States, I went through it. Right? I went to graduate school. I tell people, don't. There's no purpose to go to school other than to get a piece of paper that's somehow going to make you more competitive because you have the pay. Well, it might, but why not just take that time and get skilled? Like, find something that's valuable that people will pay you for and spend that time learning that. And that skill is going to be worth 10 times the piece of paper. And so, unfortunately, I loved school, but I no longer recommend it for most people unless you're going into STEM. There's just absolutely not.
Yeah, but what if somebody wants to be, in HR? They want to, run an HR department at a company. How are you going to do that without gender studies and
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. Go work in an HR department and take MBA courses. Skip the bachelor's degree altogether. If you want to have a job in business, go get the job and take MBA courses. That's it. Take them online, learn the skills, talk to the people that you're working with, and say, hey, here's an idea. And they'll go, I think we need you. So I'm a business coach. I work with entrepreneurs, and trying to hire good people. I'm sure you know this, Rosie, right? Like, hiring good people is a non-trivial achievement. To be able to find good people who can actually think, be creative, be innovative, take responsibility, do the job. When they find those people, they don't care about the degrees. They don't care about any of the formal. It's like, I can't count the number of conversations where it's like, okay, this person doesn't have the education, pay for their damn education, because they have the attitude that actually makes your business succeed. They just need the skills. We can get the skills, but you're not going to get them in college. What, a bachelor degree in order to get skills? No one thinks that. No one intelligent, certainly not a business person who would want to hire you.
I mean, in my experience, if you want to hire the best people, go to Slovakia. But Daniel, is the state of universities in Slovakia similar to what we know from English-speaking countries?
So, yeah, in a sense, yes, because we still, in Slovakia, we always say we live 20 years behind apes, because we are like really behind on everything. So we don't have the woke agenda yet. So yeah, when I was at we call it university. When I was at a university, I was in a STEM, I guess you would call it. I was learning programming. I liked it a lot. It's a good experience. A lot of drinking, especially since I live in Eastern Europe. It's like half of the stuff you do. But yeah, I learned a lot. It was really like the experience. One thing I kind of want to talk about. So one thing I kind of want to mention that I heard about specifically like getting the degrees. Oftentimes the degree doesn't matter in a sense that like it means you know stuff in this field. Sometimes it's much important. The fact that you can get a degree might mean you can get stuff done on time, might mean you are regularly maybe attending classes and things like that. So it's oftentimes, it's not, again, about knowledge. It's the fact that you can learn stuff, you can get stuff done. So just to maybe fight with Mark a little bit.
If you can show up to class after a night of drinking, what I'm assume is warm beer just because I've heard that before about you. I don't know if that's correct. Lukewarm Coors Light, right? Because it's not.
Isn't that British thing, warm beer?
No, that's just a rumor I've heard on the channel about what you drink, which is, by the way, if you want Daniel to drink cold beer, please send a super chat and it will go to a good cause. Enric Teller says, I became a computer programmer without a degree, mainly through working in business and taking some computer classes. Yeah, I know other programmers who they didn't go to university. Now again, I'm sure there's value, and yeah, Daniel, like you said, there's value in having such a structure, certainly when you're 17, 18, and you probably prefer not to have that structure. Yeah, there could be value in that, but yeah, if that structure is being like brainwashed with really bad ideas, then that's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, if the question is, are they going to take a second look at your resume? Having the letters on there is good, because your grades were good enough in high school and you were intelligent enough to take tests that you got accepted into the program, right? And then you completed the program. Okay, that's definitely, those are both, and when you're looking at a resume, that's useful, right? But go out and have conversations. If again, I live in the Silicon Valley. I live and I grew up in this area, and there's an ethos here, and the ethos is learn how to do it and do it. Just learn how to do it and do it. And if you want a job with a particular company, like, go to the company and hang out until you meet people, and then start having conversations. And if you're serious about it, again, if you want to get into HR, take the lowest job possible at any company in HR. Just take the lowest job possible so you can learn the language, you can learn the techniques, hound people, get into conversations so that people, 2 minutes of conversation is more valuable than a degree on your resume. 2 minutes of conversation, intelligent, focused, responsible conversation where you are proactive, saying, I want to do this. I want to get good at this. I will be valuable for you. You can count on me.
Yeah, I'm wondering to what extent the difference is the difference in today's culture, because you said if you know what you want to do, just go for it and do it. You don't need a school for it. And that's probably true, but most people, especially in today's culture, don't know what they do. They even finish years in college and they still don't know what they do.
Yeah, but this is the thing. If you're going to go to college, why?
The drinking.
Why? I mean, if you want to drink and have fun, which I got to tell you, I mean, I went to school at UC Santa Barbara, which is in Southern California. It is literally on the beach. My dormitory looked out on the ocean. I was a hippie, I had long hair. I was a Marxist, postmodernist. It was a good time. And I used to meditate on the beach every morning. I would go out, there's a special place on the cliff with and I would meditate and we drank and we did LSD, and I was in a metal band, and it was awesome. It was awesome. And I spent so much money. I spent so much money to party.
Can I check with the producer if we have exclusive footage of Mark in college? Do we have?
I was just about to say, Mark would, as a Marxist, he would really enjoy my dormitory, because you could overlook all those communist era buildings. Still, the only thing that's actually like still standing there.
See, it's much easier to be a Marxist when you're overlooking the beach than when you're actually seeing the buildings that
complaining about capitalism. I mean, and this is college. What are you going to learn? Let's say you don't know what you want to do. Idea: don't spend a bunch of money partying pretending like you're going to know what to do. Right.
By the way, Enric also went to college at UC Berkeley. It could have been that you were there at the same time. It could have been that you were hanging out every day
Okay.
and you don't even remember. But
Now I have to be clear. I went to UC Santa Barbara. It's part of the
oh,
same.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
There's like,
Sorry, that's not even close actually.
Berkeley was I lived 20 minutes from Berkeley, and so I used to go to Berkeley all the time when I was a kid, and I would hang out there, and that's where I learned first about homelessness and begging, and patchouli oil, and like Berkeley is a hippie culture. Santa Barbara is a surfer culture, much better. Just, I mean, if you're going to waste a bunch of money going to school, go to a beach, not to Berkeley.
Alejandro, you went to university in Mexico, I believe.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have woke culture in Mexico? Has it arrived? It's pretty close to I think where the birthplace of it. So
there is. And in my university, there wasn't such woke culture, I would call it. There was a big humanities department, and that has screwed up the school because it was very much shaped like Chicago school, and their main focus was just to make you work hard, learn that sometimes things are painful, and then make you think a lot. And that uni, I think it's almost dead. So, and the rest of the unis are not particularly good.
Yeah, I'm gonna ignore that comment in the chat. You know what I'm talking about. Don't worry, the person who posted it knows. Yeah, so our last topic, we only have a few minutes. I mean, this could easily fill hours, but yeah, well, so how do I introduce this topic? Alejandro, before the show, we were talking about what a good-looking man you are and how that is widely acknowledged. And yeah, if I say you're a good-looking man, that kind of disqualifies you from, I don't know, being I would think from being in any beauty contest for women or something to that effect, right? But Jesus, I should really write these transitions. A vegan brand wins 4 times at International Cheese and Dairy Awards. That is the headline of our last story for today. Somehow, a type of supposed cheese that has no dairy and is vegan has won at a Cheese and Dairy Awards. Yeah, I think it's good that this follows the university topic. We didn't actually plan it this way, but it kind of this is what happens when you go to university, study the humanities, and then need to come up with ways of saying that what isn't, and vice versa. Alejandro, would vegan brand win at International Cheese and Dairy Awards in Mexico?
I have no clue. Thanks for the compliment, by the way. To be honest, I've only tasted vegan cheese once, and I don't want to even remember of that moment. I thought it was plastic. I tried to make some quesadillas with it, and it was terrible. It tasted, I don't know how to describe it. Everything that the cheese, every single taste about that the cheese makes some affectation on, this kind of stuff didn't. So it tasted sweet, it tasted bland, it tasted unsalty. I don't know, it was terrible. And I don't know, this thing is going to make me get really angry as well.
Yeah, my favorite story about these kinds of I don't know what you call it, like group, like vegan alternatives or these kind of things, is when I was with Razi in South by Southwest earlier in this year. They had this meet which was like a mushroom meat or like a mushroom alternative of meat. And Razi was like he didn't even want to look at it. He was so repulsed by it, just by the idea of it. And I tried it and it was actually pretty good. Although it didn't have like the meat consistency. It was like it was different thing. It was like good, and I almost didn't understand why they even like I don't get if like something is good, why do you have to make it like an alternative option? If like that thing, like that mushroom, it was like spicy, it was like really good, but why do you have to like compare it to meat? If it's
Daniel,
like
if I make a fake meat from onion rings, would you eat that?
I don't like onion rings.
Exactly. I don't like mushrooms, but I also don't like culturally what this means. Mark, I think Silicon Valley, I don't know if
No,
they're
this is the
going to
center.
ban, but
Again, this is the set. We have all of the fast food chains in our area, which tells you like how far it's gone down, have vegan hamburgers. All of them. There's vegan everything where I live. And I agree, Dan. It's if you didn't call it meat, if it were just its own thing, then it would taste exactly how it tastes, and you either like it or you don't. But as soon as you call it meat, I think it's really stupid advertising, because you're saying, hey, let's take this thing that's just, it's not bad, it's not great, it's not bad. Let's compare it to something that's just fantastic. Let's compare it to something that literally makes you just drool because it's so good. And now it sucks compared to that. Like I've had all of them. You know, I have a lot of friends who are vegan to protect the animals or for health purposes. I worked for Tony Robbins for a long time, and he pushed veganism a lot. And some of the stuff isn't bad, right? But it's not a replacement, and it shouldn't be thought of as a replacement. That very category error creates an entire set of conflict that's unnecessary, that stops people from eating what otherwise might be good food, even though it probably isn't that good for you. As someone who's mostly a carnivore. But the one thing I will say is that the headline is that the vegan cheese won 4 different awards. Right. The good news is that 3 of the awards were for best vegan something. So they were competing in like, okay, let's take all of the really bad stuff and figure out which one's the best, and it won. But it did win. This vegan cheese in this competition won best processed cheese, which makes you wonder, what the hell is in processed cheese? That a vegan version of it could be better.
To be fair, processed cheese by itself is pretty bad. You usually have to like pair it with something to like make it decent.
yeah,
So-
yeah. I don't like processed cheese either, but it has a meaning. It's processed cheese. It's not processed some other stuff that didn't come out of a living being. So
Well,
yeah.
so again, I grew up with Cheese Whiz. So it's cheese that you spray out of a can. I don't actually think that was cheese at all. It's cheese-like substances. It's cheese adjacent. Right. And absolutely, Alejandro, if you're going to use this fake rubber plastic cheese stuff, don't do like quesadilla. It has to be like a sprinkle on top of something where it's like you've got good meat and good everything else, and then a little fake stuff so that it gets pushed off to the side.
Or as I believe it was Nancy Reagan taught us, just say no. Yeah, you can do it. By the way,
just
yeah.
quickly, I have one more story from this. So when I was buying burger patties for a burger. Some of people might know that I like burgers. But so, and I was going through the freezer trying to find specific burger patties, and I'm like, wow, such a huge selection. I start picking them up and I see, oh, Beyond Meat. Oh, okay, I'll pick another one, Beyond Meat, which is like a vegan version. I go one after another. It was all, I only found one out of like maybe 20 or 30. All of the other ones were vegan. I was so shocked. Like, are people actually like, if you have it in like a supermarket store, the people have to buy it, right? They don't just have it there just
I
to
mean,
have it.
there's a reason all the Beyond Meat was left and the actual meat was taken. But no, I mean, come on.
And it probably lasts for 6 years. Like actual meat is gonna rot, but this,
Well, and it's frozen.
protein with combining fillers, that stuff it's the new Twinkie. We're gonna have vegan patties in all of the nuclear bomb shelters.
No, because Twinkies taste good. They're bad for you, but they're sweet and sugary and yeah, no, it's not the same. Yeah, and in supermarkets, come on, if you're gonna sell that crap, put it in a special people's section. Don't put it with the normal food.
Also, Twinkies do have expiration date, which is actually the plot of one of my favorite movies, Zombieland. It's about a guy trying to find non-expired Twinkies because the date was approaching.
Equal to reality in a super chat asks, is goat's cheese actually cheese? Yes, because it comes from an animal. It's made from. Mark, you disagree?
No, it's delicious.
Yeah.
Different flavor profiles. Another thing, vegan cheese. Tell me you have no taste without telling me you have no taste.
If they had that tagline, I would buy just to support them and throw it out on my way home. So I know we're over the allocated time for the show, but there was, we were talking behind the scenes about different things we can do with the show, and one of them was I suggested we do an occasional segment called Letters to the Editor of The Guardian. Because I've been reading letters to the editor of The Guardian, and sometimes just reading them out is entertaining in and of itself. Now, we're not going to do that today, but I will read one letter which is somewhat relevant here, although it's not the it doesn't have the entertainment value, but it's actually makes some sense. I was intrigued by your article on plant-based pork ribs with edible vegan bones. I would love to know whether vegans find it justifiable to consume foods that look like meat. It could make matters worse by reminding them of how it doesn't taste like the real thing. Wouldn't it be better to eat food that isn't pretending to be something else? I mean, it's very rare that you find reasonable comments from who I assume is a vegan. Actually, I'm not sure he's a vegan, but yeah, why is the fake meat so popular among people who think that eating meat is evil?
Because you can only fool yourself so deeply. You can say, I should not eat meat, but I want to because it's so good and my body wants it. So I'm going to do fake meat. That way I can keep all of my virtue and actually get something that my body desperately wants and needs.
Daniel?
Yeah, agree. Like I said, I don't mind any like vegan options, especially there might be dietary needs or something that restricts you from eating meat. But you're just hurting yourself if you're trying to replicate something instead of actually like being your own thing. And because even like consistency matters a lot with food, and it's really hard to get like the meat consistency with vegan options, which also again hurt you. Like put it in a consistency that like makes sense, and don't compare it to something.
Yeah, taste, texture, health, it is good for you. I mean, I eat things that are not good for me, but meat, but I have a better justification than vegans do. It tastes good. Alejandro, I don't know why I keep asking you things about Mexico when you've been living in London for years, but I've never been to Mexico except a few hours in Tijuana in like the 90s, which I've been told doesn't count. But it strikes me from afar that in Mexico, this is probably not as big as it is here.
No, it isn't, and it's one of the nice things of living there. It's not a big deal.
I'm really hoping at some point Alejandro will say, You guys know I'm not from Mexico, right?"
Yeah, I also was in Tijuana once for an hour, and that's it. No.
You recommend visiting
Tijuana?
Tijuana? Yeah.
I've never been to Tijuana.
Oh,
No, it was a joke. The
Oh.
1 hour in Tijuana was a joke. I've never been to Tijuana.
Cancun, Cabo San Lucas.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I visited most of the center south of the country, but then to the north, there's not a lot of things to see.
All right. Apollo Zeus asks, "Where's the conversation going?" Good question. I think it's going toward wrapping
Mexico,
up.
probably.
We had one more topic in mind, but I guess
Oh, wait, yeah, okay. Can we very quickly talk about it? Because I have something to do in a few minutes. I need to call someone, but let's do it. Let's quickly talk about let's just talk about that one moment in the Republican debate. We can't talk about the whole thing, but yeah, what was the question they were asked?
Yeah, just quickly, Alejandro and Mark, have you watched the Republican debates for president?
No.
So there was one moment, so they're posing them a question. All of you here, all the Republican nominees, have said that you will support the Republican choice for the president, for the nominee for president. Would you still stand by this decision if the Republican pick was Donald Trump and he was convicted of his charges? And all of them but one raised her hand. Well, even Mark, really?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, so it's hard to differentiate between my dislike and distaste for Democrats and Republicans. It's really like they're both, it's just so vivid disgust that I have to deal with all the time. So, and so I'm American. And American, you could say the fundamental attitude of the America that I think is essential is, who are you to tell me what to do? Like, this is my life. I get to do what I want to do. And don't bullshit me. And all the Republicans I know think that it's a complete witch hunt that Donald Trump is being prosecuted. Right? I mean, did he do some things that are not so great? Yeah, that's called being a politician. Did he actually do anything egregious and importantly wrong? No, basically. And so who cares if they convict him or not? That has nothing to do with the truth. It has nothing to do with justice. It has to do with the political legal system. And so I think all of them should have said yes, because this whole thing is a joke. So that's who didn't say yes to that.
I don't know his name.
It was Chris Christie, no?
He was on the leftmost side. That's what I remember.
That fits the political tack he's taking in this primary. But yeah, so I have an opinion on that. I didn't see it, but I have an opinion on it.
All right, I didn't see that coming, and this could be a whole other episode. But yeah, obviously, yeah. I mean, the little that I saw of the Republican debate, and you know, the little I know about the candidates, or in some cases I know a bit more than others. The fact that, and this started in 2015, pretty much when Trump started running, and then in 2016 when it was clear that he was going to be the nominee, and some Republicans pretended to have principles and kind of said, you know, we're not going to endorse him, or pretended like they're undecided. I mean, Ted Cruz is a memorable one because he for a while seemed like a free market guy. And so when he was booed on in the Republican convention, like that was the moment when I thought, that's somebody actually saying, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm in the party of free market ideas, at least historically, and this guy, he doesn't fit that, and he's a horrible human being on top of that, and I'm not gonna vote for him just because he happened to join the party that I'm in because he thought it would be easier to fool people into voting for him. So, which he actually said, I think, at some point. So, yeah, I think the way the Republican Party has gone, like, nothing, nothing shows where they've ended up more than all those hands raised saying, yes, we don't care if he's a criminal. We don't care, the fact that he spent 4 years trying to trample the Constitution in every way. The fact that he says the people he looks up to are like the worst dictators in the world. Those are the people he admires because, as he said about the North Korean dictator, his people respect him. Well, his people will be killed if they don't respect him. So of course they show respect. Yeah, I think this is one of those moments where I think it's time for people to say, like we talked about British politics. I mean, I said I want the Conservatives to lose. I would not vote for Labour. I think in America, I would actually vote for the Democrats, and it might not, in terms of presidential nominee. I don't think at this point it would matter who the nominee is. If it's somebody who raised their hand at that moment, that's when.
Yeah, and the one guy who didn't raise is like an extreme, like anti-abortionist, as most of the Republicans at that stage were.
Yeah,
All of them, some of I cannot say exactly, but a lot of them would even support either national ban or national restrictions. And even the ones who were against the national ban were like, oh, this is a state's issue. States should decide and not the federal government, that doesn't mean anything.
speaking of state issues, Alejandro, if Mexico was a state, would Trump win?
Um,
Aren't Catholics like really, like a lot of them are Republicans? Because I know Mexico is really Catholic.
yes, although to be honest, I think religion plays actually less of a part of Mexican politics than even US politics. It's more like the issues that are set because of religion. But I think he would, like, the current president looks really similar to Trump in his rhetoric, in the way that he handles himself.
Is he building a wall to keep out the Americans?
No,
No,
he
he's also
isn't.
building the border on the south. It's issue that goes all the way down to Chile.
No, actually, he was quite. He had good terms with Trump, and he agreed with him to keep out some of the people from Central America from coming to the U.S. And actually, Trump referred to him as Juan Trump. Like, in case people think that Trump is right-wing president, he is, but he's that far away from left-wing presidents. He praised super left-wing president as himself with his own last name. But that's another issue.
It's Trump's deep and abiding principled nature that was being expressed, because he's just such a principled guy.
Well, I mean,
I am kidding. Dan,
Okay.
you're like, what the hell?
This has been the longest episode of the reality show so far, and I'm pretty sure we could go for another couple of hours.
Can
But
I just make
I
one
think-
more point?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say I think Mark and I are gonna have our own debate at some point probably on the Daily Objective. It's more of a Daily Objective topic, but yeah, look out for that next week on this channel. That's gonna be interesting because we could keep going right now, but we can't because we have to wrap up. But Daniel, you had something.
Yeah, this is one just thing that makes me glad that I live in a country that has at least a parliamentary system, because I look at America and like the choice between Republicans, Democrats, it's becoming harder and harder. Like not even every year, every month it becomes harder. And at least here, with the parties we have in Slovakia, for me there was always like a clear choice, and it's not compromising anything. And although we had like 3 governments in last year, and now it's actually a fallen government, so we have a snap election coming up. The
Minor
election,
details.
the election results don't look great so far. It looks we either have to have real like hardcore social democrats or fascists in the government. Well, they will have to. There cannot be like a government without one of those. So it's gonna be fun. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping Okay, maybe I'm backtracking on myself. Maybe your system is better. At least we don't have fascists in government.
I see Bonnie in the chat. Bonnie, I think on Monday we promised that there will be at least one positive topic a week. Does the vegan cheese qualify? I don't know. Maybe we
Maybe
talked
it's
about
good now.
what?
Maybe it's good now. That's why it won the reward.
Well, no, but I think yesterday.
By definition, no.
Yesterday we were talking about life on Mars, so that human life on Mars, not aliens have been discovered or whatever Alejandro thinks is going on there. This is a throwback to our long-standing debate on the question of extraterrestrial life.
We should have a reality show on that, you and I.
All right. I do think we've covered the topic frequently enough, but yes,
Again.
why not? Everybody here wants to debate me on something, and you're all on. Let's do it. So thanks everybody for joining us. We will be back with the reality show on Monday and with the Daily Objective. And of course, we have a full week of shows next week, also on Monday. The last episode of HBTV TV for the foreseeable future. I don't know how long the hiatus is going to be, but yeah, watch it. It'll be good, and if you missed any, you will have time to catch up.
And we also have weekend events for members. So tomorrow at 4 p.m. UK time, we have the History of Astronomy course with Joseph the Bankin. That's for platinum members and above. I'll put the link to become a member in the chat. And 1 hour after that, we have the Philosophy Forum, where we'll discuss tattoos and high-risk sports, and maybe something more.
The Philosophy Forum discussion on which is the greatest sex scene in all of literature, and of course we're only picking the ones from the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. That has been delayed to sometime in September, but yeah, you need to be a platinum member for that. Daniel put the link in the description, so you can sign up there, or you can sign up for any other level of membership. Thanks again, and see you all next week.